Happy Sunday, everybody. I'm KHOU 11 Meteorologist Pat Cavlin here with a tropical update. We do this nightly at around 8 p.m. here on KHOU 11 Plus. Thankfully, not a ton going on at the moment, but there are some things that we'll have to start to keep an eye on as we look down the road. Here's a look at the map. We've got one spot here. It's a wave coming off the west coast of Africa. We were talking about this yesterday and the day before. But today, as of this evening, this wave is now over open water. And so the odds for development just up 10% from this morning, now at 40% odds. I anticipate this to go all the way to high probability for development. And I do expect something to eventually form out here in the Atlantic. We've got a long time, though, to watch this. Typically, it takes about a week for a wave to get from the west coast of Africa, at least towards the western Atlantic. So we'll have a lot of time to keep an eye on this. Development looks to be somewhere in this area, so somewhere here in the middle of the tropical Atlantic later on this week. So here's a look at the big board, and we're going to highlight that area. Again, there's the wave. And again, it'll develop somewhere in this shaded area. Now, this wave will get steered by a large area of high pressure over the North Atlantic. That is going to take this thing and just push it westward. Here it is. We'll put the forecast into motion. There's next weekend and then eventually into next week. So next Tuesday, September 9th, notice this thing is just getting to the Antilles. So again, takes 8 to 10 days for this tropical wave to get from the west coast of Africa all the way towards the Antilles. But notice, by this point, we've got a really concentrated blob of red, which is basically this graphic's way of highlighting an area that is trying to develop. And so I really do think there's a chance here. And because of that, we're going to have to keep an eye on this as we go through the next week. Here's a different view, and this is maybe something that you're a little more used to. We're looking at cloud cover. And we're also looking at wind streams. And again, wherever you see a little bit of a circulation here, that indicates a system that's trying to form. I would say probably by Friday, we're at least looking at maybe a tropical depression or a tropical storm. Nothing terribly strong, nothing to be concerned about. But from there, that's the big question, is how quickly does it form? What are the steering currents? What are the atmospheric conditions look like? Is there a lot of wind shear? Are the conditions favorable for strengthening? This particular computer model does strengthen this system as it moves closer to the Antilles. In fact, we've got what looks like maybe even a hurricane, but this is 10 days down the road, 10, 11 days down the road. We're looking all the way out towards next Wednesday, September 10th. Bottom line, though, it does look like we'll have a decent system forming here about a week and a half down the road from that wave that has a 40% chance of developing right now. The question then is, if we have a system in this part of the Atlantic, just to the north of the Antilles, does it curve to the north around that high, just like we saw with, what was that storm a couple of names ago? The one that made the close pass, Erin, that made the close pass in between Bermuda and the East Coast. You know, will this storm take a similar track to Erin, or does it get pushed by that high a little farther to the west and then become something that we'll have to keep an eye on in the U.S.? Way too early to tell. The model doesn't go out farther than this point, so this is all the information that we've got, so we just have to keep an eye on it. But we do expect more activity to kind of perk up here as we go through the next week or two. Other than that, there's nothing going on right now. The Atlantic is dead quiet, high pressure in charge from the Azores down through the tropics. Again, there's our wave now just starting to move off the West Africa coast. Very disorganized right now, no organization at all whatsoever. In our part of the world, the Caribbean, dead quiet, nothing going on there. And then here in the Gulf, notice we got a couple of storms here, especially out towards South Florida, getting into the Bahamas. That's all associated with what brought us all of our rain today here in Southeast Texas. This stationary boundary is pretty much draped from the Bahamas across Florida through the Gulf and into the state. The reason I'm pointing this out is because anytime you get thunderstorms, a big complex of thunderstorms along a frontal boundary over warm tropical waters near the peak of hurricane season, you got to keep an eye on it. So what does our forecast model do with this? Well, not much. We've got the wind particles on here, we've got the cloud cover, we've got the rain, and you can see it will be active along this boundary towards the middle of the week. I don't see any type of circulation really jumping off. However, again, anytime you've got this set of factors kind of line up, you got to keep an eye on things because sometimes a weak system will try to develop along the front. I'm not worried about it. The Hurricane Center doesn't have anything highlighted, but we're always keeping an eye on this stuff, especially since it's in our backyard, and especially since, like I mentioned, we're getting close to the peak of hurricane season, which is now just 10 or 11 days away. Today's August 31st. Peak of the season is September 10th. That doesn't mean that after September 10th, everything starts to wind down. We stay in a period of historically or climatologically active, tropical weather through mid to late October. So pretty much now till the end of October is when we are most on guard here in terms of the tropics. But again, no threats to the United States right now, no organized systems, no named storms. And a little bit of a fun fact for you before I wrap this up. Last year on Labor Day, we did not have any named tropical systems. And this year on Labor Day, tomorrow, it looks like we also will not have any named tropical systems. And the last time that happened, where there were 2 consecutive years without named tropical systems, I believe was like 1992 and 1991. Let me just double check that stat. Yeah, 91 and 92. So you're talking 33 years ago. That's the last time that we had 2 consecutive years without a named system on Labor Day. So we'll do that again tomorrow. That's a look at your tropical update for tonight. Again, we do these every night here on KHOU 11 Plus at 8 p.m. We have a full update on the forecast and the tropics again coming up tonight on the KHOU 11 News at 10 o'clock. Hope to see you there.